So, we need to talk about Among Us. It's 2026, and somehow, someway, Paramount Plus has just released a new TV show called Among Us, and it literally takes place in the world of Among Us on the ship The Skeld, which is the default original map in the game Among Us. So in case you've never played Among Us before, you probably were living under a rock in 2020, and that's totally fine. So Among Us is a mobile or PC game, or even you can now play it VR apparently, which is kind of sick. And you literally sit there and you are a crewmate, or you are an imposter. Crewmates, your job is to complete tasks throughout your entire ship, to repair the ship, save everybody's life. The imposters, however, their job is they are disguised as a crewmate, so they have to deceive all the crewmates on the ship and kill all the crewmates on the ship. In a typical game of Among Us, usually there's going to be about 10 players and there's going to be 2 imposters. That's like the typical layout of the lobby. That was also the maximum amount you were allowed to have until a couple of years ago when they updated it to 15 maximum players and 3 imposters. But usually you would expect about 10 players, 2 imposters. And spoiler alert ahead for the show. If you don't want spoilers for the show, I don't know why you clicked on the video, but click off now because I'm about to say a huge spoiler. 3, 2, 1. We did in fact have 2 imposters. It was such a good, I watched it because I was like, oh, people are actually talking about it online, saying that it's actually good. I have to tap into this. So texted my dad, was like, I need the login for Paramount. Pulled it up. I watched 1 or 2 episodes last night, and then I binged the entire rest of the show today. They're really short 15-minute episodes, but wow. Wow, 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 wow. So first things first, we are introduced to 3 characters off the bat, which are going to be white, green, and orange. White and green are coming in as people who are going to be joining the ship. White, won a free trip to be a part of the ship. Green is an unpaid intern who is on the ship. And we are introduced to Orange as the HR representative for Mira HQ. And if that doesn't sound familiar to you, Mira HQ is the second map on Among Us, which no one really likes that map. It's a lot easier if you're an imposter because every single vent connects across the entire map. The Skeld, however, which is the ship, that is the first one, that is where this entire show takes place, is there. But Orange works for Mira HQ as the HR representative on the Skeld. And then we have Red the captain, Cyan is the gemologist, Black is the geologist, Yellow and Brown are both cooks. I'm missing Purple security. Lime is the engineer, which engineer is actually one of the roles you can get where they can actually vent as well as imposters. That's a newer role, so I thought that was really fun that they included that. And Blue is the one that I'm missing. Blue is the doctor. Now I want to also mention this cast is stacked. This cast is stacked. If you were sitting there like I was, this cast is stacked. Let me pull it up for you guys, and I will put pictures on the screen. I don't think you're ready for this. Okay. Purple is Ashley Johnson. And that name is probably going to sound really familiar to you, and it should, because Ashley Johnson was the original voice actress for Ellie from The Last of Us, and then she also made a cameo in the live-action The Last of Us TV show with Pedro Pascal as Ellie's mom. But she was the original Ellie. She was also in Avengers. If you watched the first original Avengers movie back in 2012, she was the waitress that Captain America saved. So, yeah, love Ashley Johnson. She's an amazing voice actress. Her voice is so like recognizable to me now that I've like consumed a lot of her media. Green, the like one of the first characters we're introduced to is Elijah Wood, who is most famous for Lord of the Rings. He's the guy with the big blue eyes that everyone thinks is in love with his best friend, who's played by the guy that plays Bob from Stranger Things. Whole thing. Don't ask me, I've never seen Lord of the Rings. I just know he's like the main character. White is played by Patton Oswalt, which he looks so familiar, and that would be because, oh, he's in Ratatouille. Is he Remy? Wait, that makes so much sense. Is he Remy? He is. He's the voice of Remy from Ratatouille. That's why his voice was so recognizable to me. Insane. And then red is Randall Park. Randall Park was the guy that played Jim in The Office. If you know, you know. He was also in WandaVision. He was also in Ant-Man and the Wasp. He was like the FBI agent. Love that guy. Black is voiced by Liv Hewson. I don't recognize really anything that they've been in, but it looks like they were in Yellow Jackets. So if you have ever seen Yellow Jackets, you probably recognize them. I have never seen that though. Blue is Dan Stevens, guys. When I had to look it up, I was like, who is Blue's voice? This is driving me insane. It's Dan Stevens. And if you don't know who Dan Stevens is, I'm like slouching, so I'm gonna lower my camera. If you don't know who Dan Stevens is, he was the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, the live action version from like 2017. Yeah, that's him. Cyan is voiced by Kimoko Glenn, who is in so much stuff. But I know her from Has Been Hotel, because she's Nifty from Has Been Hotel. Oh, love it. Lime is Wayne Knight, who I guess was in Toy Story 2, Space Jam, Jurassic Park, Seinfeld, Tarzan, 5 Nights at Freddy's 2, Dirty Dancing. Been in a lot of stuff, I just don't personally recognize him. Yellow is Deborah Wilson. Over the Hedge, that's fire. And Avatar. Don't really recognize this person either, but I absolutely loved their acting in this show. And then Orange is Yvette Nicole Brown, very famous for Drake and Josh. Very famous for Drake and Josh. And then Brown is Phil Lamar. I also don't recognize anything that he's ever been in. But yeah, so that's the cast. It's stacked incredibly, right? And dude, this show was good, right? So we get in, they're getting their tour, and then all of a sudden, they find that White is dead. Head got chopped off, the bone is coming out of the body. Shocker. Everyone's shocked. However, something I noticed on Twitter that I think is really important, because it did spoil the show for me technically, is in the first episode, they hit an asteroid because red allows white to fly the ship, and they hit an asteroid and it puts a huge hole, and they're like, oh no, we have to protect the Ore Plus, which are these like rocks that they are required by Mira to transport. And what we see in this scene is while they're trying to push this like box of Orange's truth balls, they're literally balls, and when you hold it, you just have to like share a fun fact about yourself. It's like a whole thing. We see in the very background of a shot orange and green get yanked behind a box. And then at the end of the episode, we find white is dead. So, everyone's freaking out, and then Blue is the doctor, and he's like, well, everyone needs to perform a scan. I don't remember the reasoning. They do their scan, and then Blue dies. Blue gets killed. And everyone is distraught, because again, everyone loves Blue. They basically say Blue is this, like, very sexy doctor who... Oh, I was very confused what that was. It's from my headphones. Blue's like the sexy doctor, he's got like the deep voice, and like they're all like objectifying him and saying he has a nice body and all this stuff, and it's like, okay guys, calm down. So that's now 2 crewmates dead. Yikes. So then Lime, he's like, it's aliens. And Red is like, no, aliens, that's crazy. And Purple's like freaking out as security. They're like, bro, what the heck is happening? And throughout the whole thing, they're like, well, Purple, you need to rewind the cameras. And Purple's like, are you stupid? How many times do I have to tell you? The cameras don't record. You just have to happen to be on the right camera at the right time to see it. Which makes Purple seem sus for a lot of the kills. Naturally. Craziness, I'm telling you. So then, Lime is like, well, I'm gonna go find the aliens and prove it to you. And everyone's like, no, we think it's Lime. Well, they all go to the reactor room because Lime was found in the reactor, and then Orange just murders Lime in front of everybody. So then they trick Orange into going into the trash chute, and they're like, oh, because of Mira, if you want to send someone out, you have to vote. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we all unanimously vote Orange. Goodbye. And so Orange is then revealed as the alien and dies. Right. And they're like, okay, yay, we did it. And then they all start going on like an acid trip. And you're just like, what is happening? Turns out their oxygen was depleting. And while they're doing all these things to restore power to the ship and get the oxygen back up, Purple tells this really revealing story of why they don't trust Red anymore, why they and Red aren't friends anymore. You know, all that stuff, just being very vulnerable with Brown and Green. Now that's a very important moment you need to remember. But all of a sudden, Yellow comes running in because Red is the captain, and he keeps trying to be like, I'm the captain, so I tell you all what to do. So he sent Yellow, Cyan, and Black to go do one thing. He was going to do something alone. And then Green, Purple, Brown were going to sit in another room together. In the O2 room and wait for the power to start back up. Well, Purple figures out that the wires were cut. So someone purposefully depleted the oxygen. And then Yellow comes back in with blood on her hands and says, Cyan. Cyan is dead. And then they vote, and Yellow gets ejected. Yellow was an innocent crewmate. Yellow was innocent the whole time. So now we're just down to Red, Brown, Green, Purple, Black. 5 people, 1 imposter. Now, friendly reminder, if you haven't played Among Us, for an imposter to win, they have to get down to 1 crewmate, 1 imposter, and then the imposter wins. The crewmates have to vote out all of the imposters to win in a regular game of Among Us. So as someone who has played the game a lot and hosted a couple charity Among Us streams and started streaming with Among Us, yeah, like, you're sitting here like, oh god, what are they gonna do? So Brown is really upset because Yellow was like his best friend, his co-chef, and so they go to cook a pizza. And they use this salt that Yellow told them to use. And then they get murdered. And I mean murdered. Like, their body is scattered all over. Like, it's very graphic. I also want to point that out. This show is very graphic. Very, 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 very graphic. And so Brown is dead, and they see it because the smoke is coming out, and they're like, well, the door's locked on the inside. So they have to, like, break in the door, and they find Brown's dead. And then Purple pulls the pizza out, and Green is like, ew, this just smells disgusting. And then Black is like, well, if we're all gonna die, I want to go die alone. So they go into the storage room, where they and Cyan used to work a lot. And they see next to Cyan's dead body, which all the bodies are just being, like, covered in the storage area as, like, a cemetery. They see Cyan's dream journal. Well, Cyan identified that the rocks that they have been holding and, like, looking after are actually eggs. And all the pink goo they've been finding on the dead bodies is coming from the aliens, which they already figured that out. While the aliens are coming out of the hollow-centered rocks. The rocks aren't hollow-centered because they're not rocks, they are eggs. They are alien eggs that Mira wants to use as fuel. And then the alien tries to kill Black, so Black is able to leave one last little note before they get killed. Cyan knew it. And then they die. So now it's just purple, green, and red. And they're all arguing, because also I want to make it clear, Purple voted to eject Red. Yellow voted to eject Red. Brown abdicated. They did not vote at all. And then Black, Green, and Red all voted to eject Yellow. And that's when Yellow died. Which also, when Yellow died, it just flipped off the camera the whole time. And so it keeps cutting back and forth between like, the crewmates in the ship. They like, okay, any minute now we're gonna see that Yellow's the monster. We're gonna see the pink monster come out. And it just flips to Yellow just sitting there, like, but, like, with the bird up, you know? Oh, it was great. It was great. This show is so funny. Ugh. And then the reactor starts going off. And so Purple and Green do the hand scans. And you're like, oh, thanks for not killing me, dude. It went a lot better than it did with Red the last time we had to deal with the reactor thing. Which ties back to the story that Purple told Green and Brown in the oxygen room when they were fixing the electricity and the oxygen. And then Green goes, you've done this with Red before? Yeah, I told you my very personal story. That's why I don't trust Red anymore. And then Green is like, I didn't know that. What do you mean you didn't know that? So Purple goes, Red, I'd like to call a vote. And Red's like, what? Like, I just bonded us all as a team. She goes, yeah, I want to call a vote right now. And I want to vote Green. And then Green is out here like, you're so mean, blah, 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 like, yelling for the first time. Green has been a very, like, nervous, anxious, like, oh, like, I'm just happy to be here, guys. I'm really grateful. Not anymore. And so Green pulls out all this evidence like, oh, Purple's whole job is security, is protecting us, and they have let everyone die. I'm just an unpaid intern. And then Purple's like, I don't have evidence, but I have a hunch. Because I told Green about this story, and they're now acting like I've never said it before. And then Red is like, well, I don't know what to do, guys. And then Green is like, well, yo, I do remember your story, and I know that what Red did was right. And then Red goes, well, this is a tough decision, but anyone who hears that story from when Purple and I were interns knows that I was wrong. Green, it's you. And then Green just flops over. The alien slid out of the body and went into the vent. They're like, no, we have to go find it. And then that's when they figure out salt is what's going to kill the aliens. So they make up this plan to like trick the alien who's like super egotistical, being like, you're not even that good at this whole thing, because they're like, oh, we need to send it out the chute. Well, it destroys the chute button, so they can't do that anymore. So then they're like, well, we just have to shoot it with the salt. And they do. And they kill it. So Red and Purple are the only survivors, but they're like, there's a bunch of baby eggs here. We're screwed. And then Red is like, well, let's destroy that wall of balls that we put there in the first episode. Let's get rid of all the eggs. It's better than us dying. And then Purple's like, wow, thanks. And then it just ends with like this great song. I love the song that they play at the end. I just can't think of it off the top of my head because I've just been yapping. And they're like talking and like trying to become friends again. They're like, we'll start as co-workers and like work our way back to being friends. It's just a whirlwind. But it's so humorous. It's so humorous because during the show, when Purple's like on their acid trip, like, oh, I gotta go visit my fish friend that I have, it swaps to the animation of the VR Among Us game. So you're seeing like Purple's hands, it's the exact same art. At some point, they're like, during the acid trip air, like, part, I think, they just edited in Brown as someone in a blow up Brown Among Us costume instead of actually animating Brown. What are we doing? And I was dying, guys. I was dying. Like, the humor in this show is so good. It's fantastic. I had a great time with this show. And honestly, if I didn't get it spoiled for me, the twist of who the imposters were genuinely would have got me. But I already kind of knew because I was like, okay, I don't know if that's actually who they are. But I kept it in the back of my mind the whole time, and then I was like, oh my god. Because they actually got me too. Because that's the thing too, is Purple was like so convinced, like, no, it can't be Green. Green was in oxygen with me and Brown. That's why I know it has to be Red, because Red was alone. That's why I don't, like, you know, like what I mean? When they were arguing over who killed Cyan, if it was Yellow, Purple thought it was Red, because she was like, well, Red, you were completely alone. How do we know you didn't kill her? Because Purple doesn't trust Red. And I was like, yeah, no, wait, it can't be Green. What the heck? Green was literally sitting there with Purple and Brown the whole time. And then they said the thing in the reactor room. I was like, no, she told us about that. She said that. What do you mean? So, like, they did really get me there for, like, a good second. They really did. So, wow. Anyways, shout out to cast and crew of the Among Us show on Paramount Plus. If you have access to Paramount Plus, I highly suggest you go watch this show. It is so fantastic. The like the acting in it, the production in it, the script. is so good. It's so phenomenal. It's hilarious. I highly recommend you check it out. But that's going to be all for today, friends. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.